Hey guys, Kevin here for the season finale of Humans, Season 1, Episode 8. And I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I mean, the cliffhanger last week was awesome, and I really didn't know what we had in store for this episode. And I have to say, it really did not disappoint. This was by far the best episode of the season. So much to get into. Seriously, so much happened in this episode. Amazing acting from nearly everyone. Honestly, to be honest with you guys, I think everyone gave their best performance in this episode. I don't know if you guys agree, but to me, I think everyone had a standout moment. Everyone had something amazing, and I really feel this was the best episode of the season by far. Now, I know the big question is, what happens next season? I don't know. I mean, they did leave off on a cliffhanger, though. I think they did, which I'll get into. But let's just get into this episode. A lot happened, and there's a lot to talk about. So, as we know, at the end of last week, all the synths were captured, and basically Leo wakes up in Hobb's lab, and Hobb said he cleaned up his wound. He had a nasty infection, but it's nothing sinister. And Leo asks how he found them, and he doesn't say, and Leo tells him to wait. He walks away. He wants nothing to do with Leo because, again, he doesn't see these synths as humans. He sees them simply as property and objects, and basically his entire family is chained up in the lab as well. They're basically on this, all surrounded. It was really interesting. So the police then tell the Hawkins family that they need their cell phones, and obviously Laura's freaking out about that. Laura says she hasn't had a legal basis for any of this, and she'll be making a full complaint to their commanding officer. And one of the officers says she can make the complaint in person because he's on the way, and their property will be returned to them. They get a Ziploc bag for them to put their cell phones in, and Joe says that they have to take her iPad too to be safe, and it's a really sad scene because you can tell that they're getting everything taken away and there's really nothing they can do. We see a helicopter outside, goes over to the city, and basically we hear that cities around the city are preparing to join the march of the We Are People movement, and basically that made me very worried. I didn't know what was going to happen when they said that. I didn't know what was going to happen, but that right there got me intrigued for this episode. So basically, an officer gets out of the car, meets up with Pete, who took an unexpected turn. I mean, I don't think any of us, at least me at least, didn't think what happened with Pete in this episode would have happened. I was thinking they were going in this route with Pete joining that We Are People group, because we see Pete. He gets out of the car, and he says his office told me he was attending a briefing on the march, so his curiosity piqued. Now, I was thinking that he was going to go to this We Are People movement and possibly join it. We'll get into what he actually does, but he asks what this is. Then the officer says restriction of matters. He is to leave now, or he will find himself another suspension, and he says he wants to speak to Hobb, and the officer says 1 million people are coming to London to protest against synthetics today. He says to go and make himself useless. You can tell this officer just wants nothing to do with him, and it's understandable. I mean, there's so much chaos and things like that. Just talking to him is giving him more stress. So, back in the lab, Karen watches one of the doctors say to Hobb that they're almost ready to start, and Karen asks what he's doing, and I was thinking that she was going to try to maybe shut this down, or that she didn't like what was going on, but he says he's putting all the dangerous stuff out of their heads, but he promises he will delete whatever it is he finds, and Karen's main concern, of course, is for them to be, for them to just, because she feels they abandoned her, obviously, and she's getting revenge on that. And, by the way, Karen, again, she gave the best performance that she has in the show so far in this episode. So, basically, Maddie says they can't do this. Toby says to call someone. There has to be a law or something. Laura says synthetics are just property. There's nothing to argue. And she says to meet her upstairs, but don't all come at once. She says they can't let them do this. They're going to kill Mia. And she says the thing inside Mia, how Laura found her, Maddie says it's her root code. And she says this proves what she is. It's their leverage. They will tell Hobb if he doesn't let them go, they can prove that they exist. And that basically is their plan. And Maddie says no one else would understand that code. She says Leo showed him, and basically she comes up with a new plan, which I thought was very, very good plan, definitely. She shows, basically Leo showed him her memories he ran on his laptop, and I love when Toby's like, it's for non-geeks. I thought that was really funny. So Maddie says there might be temporary copy. By the way, Toby in this episode, probably like his funniest lines. I mean, Toby and Joe, just killing it. Hilarious stuff, I have to say. That's something I really haven't talked about, is how funny Toby and Joe can be sometimes. They're hilarious. And basically, Maddie says there might be temporary copies of what she saw, so his dad, the synths being built, him not being dead, that's all there. They will see it, and they will see that they are definitely, human. And Laura says either he or Joe will take the laptop somewhere safe. Joe says they'll just arrest them, but Maddie says she might be able to. Laura says she might get hurt. She says they don't need to protect them anymore, and that's okay. And Toby asks if Joe is in. He nods, and Maddie says the first problem is they've already taken Mia's laptop. It's outside, and Maddie says they're all powered up and connected, and basically they're all powered up and connected. So in the lab, Mia says Hobb is trying to link their minds. They have to fight it. They can't let him have the power, and I like that Mia knew what was going on, because obviously everyone's freaking out. They have no idea what's going on, but at least Mia knew. So Leo tries to get Max's attention, as does Fred, but again, he's just kind of in this vegetative state at this point. I know he's a synth, but that basically is what he's in. He's basically a vegetable at this point. He's not saying anything, and he says not fight it, let it happen, and, basically he says their last chance to try and save Max, and basically, he's thinking that whatever they're planning on doing, it's going to somehow save Max. And Niska asks what the point is in saving them. They're getting out of there. Mia says they don't know what will happen, and he says neither does Hobb. And Leo asks if they want to find out. Fred says he does. They all fall asleep together, and basically, they're going to try to link their minds. That basically is what they're trying to do here, because they link their minds, maybe they can wake Fred up. Wake Max up. So Hobb asks what language this is. It's an executable file, a program of David Elster's own, and they all wake up and it didn't work, and Max is still not responding. He's still just standing there, and Leo says they're all here, they're all connected, and Mia says they're not all here, there is another, and of course she's referring to Karen, and I was very interested in seeing what was going to happen with Karen this episode, I have to say, but basically Fiona comes in with Robert to see Hobb, and this scene was awesome because it did two things. One, it made us realize that Fiona is not as evil as we think she is, and two, it showed us how awesome of a villain Hobb is. Like, seriously, can we talk about how awesome a villain Hobb is? Hobb is just such a great villain, because she asks if he really has them all. He says he has Leo Elster too. She says he destroyed Fred and showed her his body. He says if he told her the truth, she would have she wouldn't have stayed, she would have, if he told her the truth, she would have started, and she says to tell her the truth or she shuts him down today, and he says to bring Fred in. He shows them the program that David used to give them all consciousness, and Fiona asks what he's doing. He says people just want to be served, they want to be loved. He says to imagine a machine they can think and feel but still be controlled like a regular synthetic. He can build on David's work. He can create conscious machines like Fred, but his will be obedient, and basically, Fred is completely under his control now. He wakes up, asks what he has done to him. Hobb says he has made some moderations to Fred's programming, which makes him his user. He won't like it, but he's continually loyal to him. And he says to put his hands around his throat, one little squeeze, that's all will take. He can't do it. And Fred says he trapped them in their own minds, give them feelings, or take away free will, make them slaves. And Hobb says to be quiet, not tell the others. He says to keep it as their little secret, and Fiona realizes, now I was really wondering what was going to happen, but Fiona realizes in this moment that this was never about keeping humans safe. He just wanted to carry on with his work, and she's, she can see that he's not all concerned at saving humans. He just wants to continue David's work, and he asks Robert what the limit is for emotional synthetics work worth the economy, and he says there isn't one. She says she wants to know every move he makes from now on personally, and she asks what happens to the other four. He says he has Elster's program, he doesn't need them anymore, and that scene was just awesome. It shows us how powerful a villain Hobb is, and also that Fiona is not, as evil as we thought. So the Hawkins family waits for the right time to get the laptop, because obviously their main goal is to get that laptop and go to Hobb. That's what they want to do here. But just they're about to get it, Pete arrives. And when Pete arrived, I didn't know what was going to happen here. He says that he overheard that the synths were special, and he wants to know what they mean. And he says he guesses they can think and feel like humans, and Joe says it's not an act. He says it's just simulation. And Laura says this can't be simulated. If he spoke to them, he would know. And again, I really thought they were saying Pete joining the We Are People group, but that's not what happens here. Pete says he has spoken to one, and basically Laura asks what he wants, and he says he just wants answers, which is exactly what they want. So she decides to get him to help them. And I thought that was really interesting because I saw Pete going in this really dark direction, but I kind of like what they did with his character in this more, honestly. I thought it was well done. So when the coast is clear, they go into the truck, look for the laptop, and they find a police officer who just misses them. He's, asking Pete what he's doing, and basically Laura says she wants to speak to Hobb right away. It's in his interest, and she says to give them their bloody phones. And Laura in this episode, probably the most badass we've ever seen her, honestly. She is, she will take charge. I mean, we've seen Laura, be badass throughout the season, but I think this season was probably, this episode was probably the most, leader Laura really is. Laura really is the leader of the family, you can just tell. So Leo asks Hobb if he's going to kill them. He says you can't kill something that's never been alive, and Leo says to kill him too. He wants to go with them, and he says he gives him permission to do whatever he wants him to, and Hobb says they have no idea how David created the organic and synthetic part of his brain. He says he had a chat with his lawyers, and legally speaking, he's not entirely human, so his rights are in a bit of gray area, and he goes to bring him some soup, and Karen, in the meantime, is watching all of this. I was really wondering what they were going to do with her here, because when she was watching this, I'm like, is she going to try to stop it? Is she going to regret what she did? I was really trying to figure out what they were going to do with this. So the doctors decide to operate on Mia first, and then we get this incredible scene between Karen and Leo. Whoever plays Leo, holy shit, this was an amazing scene, I have to say. This scene was just incredible. Karen goes into the room, Leo's is in, he asks why she's doing all this, and Karen says it's because someone needs to correct his father's mistake, and Leo says that Max is dying and she can save him and link her mind with the others to unlock the secret. She asks why she would do that. He says he doesn't have a reason, he's just appealing to her humanity, and she says that she's not human, and I love what Leo says, because this pretty much sums up the show. I mean, in terms of these 5 characters, it pretty much sums up what we're trying to get at here. He says, humanity is not a state, it's a quality. Max the machine, but he's got more humanity than anyone, which is true. Humanity, when you think about it, is not just something that, you are. Humanity is emotions and leadership. It's all about emotions and feeling things and things like that. That's really what it's all about, and I have to say, I love how deep the show got there. And the doctors get ready to run a test on Mia, and Leo asks why she came in. She says she has a life, a real one, and she says not to throw it all away on them. He says they have lives, and she could choose if she helped them. Karen said they'd never be able to live in peace with humans. Their existence can only live in pain, and Leo says she's been alone since the day she was made, because of course, they didn't accept her, so they just ran away, and that's why she can't see. She's only talking about herself, and I thought this was a great scene here. He says he can see a bit of them in all of her. She's got Fred's strength, Niska's darkness, and she wants to know things like Max, and she cares like Mia. However, she smiles. It seems like she's going to do something, but then she just turns away, and he is not convinced her. Leo says she cares about what happens to him. He says she's one of them, and I mean, that scene, I didn't know what was going to happen here. It was really sad, I have to say. I will admit, this episode got me a few times. I was crying quite a few times, and I'll get to, this is not one of those scenes, but there were a few times. So, Maddie looks on the laptop, finds the memories. Pete tells her to slow down. If she gets online, Hobb will be there to track her. And I love when Toby's like, you don't know my sister. That was awesome. And because, yeah, Maddie's a computer genius. She knows exactly what she's doing. She says she's shielding them about 5 different ways and using a .net email account, which, of course, if you do that, then if you use a .net email account, you can't really get into anything. So basically, one trace me says that's all right. Toby says he just watched one of them, which one he says he knew her as Karen and thought she was the person, and Maddie asks if Hobb has her as well. He says he doesn't know what's happening, but he knows he's the key, and Hobb goes to talk to Laura and Joe, and he asks what he can do for them. And Laura says they have a computer with copies of Leo's memories. They show everything, and basically they say if he doesn't let Mia and the others go, they'll take it to the press, and he asks where it is, and Joe says it's somewhere safe. He says he doesn't believe them. Laura shows him her phone and the pictures of the family, and she says he wouldn't want to see that on the news tonight. And as the doctor's making an incision on Mia, they get a call from Hobb, and he asks if their mission is intact, and he says get ready to move Leo 2. They're letting them go, and I thought that scene was really interesting. So Leo, Mia, Niska, Fred, and Max are all reunited, and they get a phone call from Laura, and she asks if everything's all right. And Mia says they're fine. Laura says they're letting them go. And at this point, I'm like, there's no way it's that simple. Like, I knew there was going to be more to it because we're 20 minutes into the episode at this point. I knew there was no way they were just going to let them go. There had to be more to it. And she says to remember where they went the day she met, to go there as a place to make sure she's not followed, and she thanks her, and Laura says if he cares about the laptop, Hobb won't follow her either. So, I love that scene with Laura and Joe, because, that was very convincing what they said to Hobb. And Mia says they're free. Karen asks what's happening, they're leaving. The doctor says not to go, they will be back. And Laura asks Joe if they're okay. He says he hasn't got a clue. She says he's safe with his family, and the doctor sees the footage on the laptop, and it's footage of Beatrice before she killed herself. This scene, I will admit, I was crying here, because this is basically this is kind of what gets to Karen. You can tell that this is affecting her, you can tell that this is getting to her, and you can tell that she can see that they truly do care about her. I mean, they have that footage of her, and it's really sad. So Laura says to Joe she told Mia she would be safe if she stayed with them, and Joe asks why there. She says she used to come there as a kid, and he says she knows she can tell him. And I love this scene here because she asks if he remembers Mike and Sarah's engagement party. He says it was 20 years ago. She says it was the closest she's ever gone to telling him and about Tom. And of course, Joe doesn't know the truth about Tom. He still thinks it's an affair, and I like what Joe says because, he did something really bad, and I like that Joe admits that he did do something bad. He's not a total sleazebag, because it seemed like he was. He seemed like he was just this dick that wouldn't say he did something wrong, but no, the Joe we got in this episode is the Joe that I want to see in the show. That's the character of Joe that I really love, and he says whatever it is, it can't be as bad as what he did. It just can't be. There's nothing wrong, and she can tell him that. He basically tells her that there's nothing she can say that will change the way he feels about her. And she says, of course there is, and she's about to tell him about Tom, but then Sophie greets Mia and the others, and Leo says Hobb will be able to trace their phone, but Joe says it's fine. Maddie's rerouted them or something. He doesn't know what that means, but they're safe. I thought that was really funny. And Laura says they brought them some stuff, and Maddie says they're with Mia and the others, and Hobb let them go, and Pete's impressed. She pulled it off. She closed the laptop, and Pete takes it. Now, when he took it, I'm like, I don't know if I trust what he's about to do. I wasn't sure if Pete was legit at this point, if he was tricking them. I mean, I didn't know what was going to happen here. Basically, he says he'll make sure Hobb gets it. He wants it, and he wants him. He then makes a call, and when he made that call, I wasn't sure who that was to. I wasn't sure if it was, to Karen, or if he was legit about what he was doing. I didn't know what was going to happen there. That was definitely something I was very interested in. So, Mia then opens up an envelope, and there's tons of money. She tells Laura she can't take it, but Laura says, she earned it, and I thought that was sweet what they did. So, Maddie and Toby regroup with the others, and Mia says they should get moving soon, and the doctors then say that Fred just transmitted their position, and Fred is still under Hobbs' control at this point, remember, and Hobbs says to bring them back and be discreet, and a We Are People protest takes place, and I love what they do here. A guy comes in to get the laptop. Pete says he wants to make sure he gives it to Hobb himself, personally, personally, and basically Niska sees a car and says they found them, they ran away, they run away, and Leo says they need to get off the streets, and they see the We Are People protest starting. They try to blend in with the rest of them, and I thought this was really smart what they did. Niska says, it's not going to work, which obviously it didn't seem like it was going to work. I didn't think this was going to. They go into a room, and Maddie says she did everything right. Leo says he believes her. Toby says it was Fred. He was acting weird back at the park, mumbling. He was doing it at the house too, and basically they realize that Fred is the thing that's going to get the FBI to track them, and Leo asks if he's alright. Fred throws him to the ground, and Mia tells him to stop. Hobb did something to him. Joe then shuts him off, and Leo calls Hobb. He says to not bother running a trance. He won't be on long enough. They know what they did to Fred. He'll never see any of them again. And Hobb says it doesn't matter. He has the code his father used to make them. And Leo says he doesn't. He says it's not complete, and Hobb says he's lying. He asked to talk to Karen, and he asks if anyone is there, and he tells her to come with them and gives out the location they're in. And I was very worried what was going to happen with Karen because, again, we don't know if Karen is on their side or not. And Hobb asked what he said, and Karen says goodbye. And I thought that was awesome when she said goodbye to Hobb. And Leo says he got to Fred in time. Hobb doesn't know where they are at this point, and Pete lets the man take the laptop, says he's earned his trust, and he's legit with that. So Sophie asks why can't they go home. Laura says they can't come back to their house. She tells her to go to sleep. And Joe says they're more safe. It went okay. And Laura says it hardly did. He says she did everything she could. It wasn't her job to save them. And finally, in this moment, she finally tells him about Tom. It's such a great scene, and I was so happy about that. I didn't think they were gonna get to that, but finally we got to that, and I was very happy that finally she told him about what happened with Tom, because that was something that I really wanted them to touch upon. It was something that she needed to tell him, and you can just tell that this is basically the event that just brings them closer. And he says, how could she even think he wouldn't understand? How she could keep that to herself? He said it's because she didn't want to hurt them, and I thought that was definitely very well done. So Leo tries to deactivate what Hobb did to Fred. Niska says someone's coming, and Mia asks how she got here, and Leo says he told her where they were. They reunite with her, and Karen says if she helps them, he has the power to give out the synthetic's consciousness, and he says maybe. She says the world would never be the same, like he even thought about it, and he says he's thinking about it, and Max and Fred, his family, he tells Maddie everyone will link through him connecting at the second Fred powers up. He says they need Karen. If she does it quickly, they will have the power to transmit. He asks if they're ready. They all close their eyes and try to link together. Now, the cinematography in this scene, the best cinematography on the show so far. I mean, this scene was incredible because basically they're in this, like, forest, basically, and there's trees there, and they each have to put a hand on the tree. But while they're doing this, they're all recalling their darkest and worst memories as since. We first see Niska recurring her life, when she was like that stripper and having sex with people she didn't like. And you see Leo recalling those horrible memories, you see Max recalling his memory of him drowning. I mean, really awesome stuff here. I really love this scene, I have to say. It really put us with these characters full circle. And Maddie said the code's corrupting. It's like something's infecting them. And Leo starts to convulse. I honestly thought Leo was going to die here. And Mia asks why Karen's doing this. She says their minds are retreating to their deepest levels as they shut down. She tells her not to fight it. And she says if she helps them, they'll have David's powers, hundreds of millions of brand new minds waking up across the world, wanting a freedom the humans will never give. And Mia says to not kill their family, and Leo will die too. And Karen says he didn't want her, and Mia says he does now. Karen says he wants Beatrice, and she's not her. And honestly, I see Karen's point. They never really wanted a synthetic mother. They want their real mother, obviously. They never wanted someone to replace her. They just wanted Beatrice. They never wanted Karen, and I think it's true that they've never really have accepted her. Mia says she didn't have a choice, but she does, and they all touch the tree, and the computer starts correcting itself. They all wake up, including Fred and Max says they're all together, and Leo hugs him. He says he thought he lost him. They rewrote his consciousness back, but they realize that Hobb is still controlling Fred. There's nothing they can do about it, and he says they have to leave him, and Karen walks out, and Leo said, now when Karen walked out, I didn't know where she was going, what her plan was here. I was very aware of what was going to happen. But Leo says the program creating consciousness, if it gets online, they can't predict what will happen. And Max says it's a decision they alone could make. And Laura says to let Karen go. And Niska decides to delete the program from the computer. She says they have to know more before they act. Until then, someone they trust should keep it. She gives it to Laura, and all the synths agree she should take it. And I thought that was really interesting. So Leo says if they're going, they should too, and Max asks what they do about Fred. They can't leave him, and Niska says they have to. Max says he's their brother, and Mia says if they took him with them, they would all be found, because Max is obviously the key to basically getting them found out, and Leo says it's what he would have wanted, and Niska says it's not the end. He knows how to survive better than any of them, and Max says goodbye to Fred and says they'll be together again someday. Now, they all go except for Niska, and she says she wants to live her own life now. She hugs her family and leaves, and they all leave. And we get this great scene where Mia thanks Laura for everything, and Sophie asks if she's going to say goodbye. It's a very satisfying scene. So Mia hugs Sophie, they all say goodbye, and it was a really great scene. So Karen then walks out, and Pete finds her, and she says she told him not to look for her, and he asks how she got the scar. She says she did it herself, and he says since don't have scar. He says it's a misdirection, and he says she's different from Beatrice. She says he figured it out without her help. He's really blossoming, and he says he's really been lonely all these years, and he asks if she's coming, and they leave together, and I really do think these two are going to try to maintain some sort of a relationship. That's going to be where they go next season. They're going to be in this very awkward point where they're trying to figure out really what they are, because you can tell that Pete wants to be with Karen, like, romantically. You can just tell, but he doesn't want to tell her, and he doesn't know how to go about it. I think it's going to be really interesting next season to see what happens with that. So Laura looks at her phone, she walks out and finds Maddie on her laptop, Joe and Toby watching a game, Sophie cleaning up the house. Pretty much everything's back to normal, and Joe says that she's keeping it clean and tidy, so it's like Mia's still there, and Maddie asks if Toby has been in her bag she can't find, and I love the scene where, Maddie talks about, where Maddie asks if Sophie is inspired by, asks Sophie if Toby's inspired by Joe's humor, and she's just like, I'm sorry, I don't understand the question, just like Anita did. I mean, that was hilarious. And he says, Toby says he's the FBI's most wanted flash drive thief, and basically, Maddie realizes that her flash drive is gone. Now, I knew they were setting us up for a cliffhanger somewhere, and basically, at the end of this episode, I love the way this ends. Niska's on the train, and she took the flash drive. She has a maniacal look on her face, and basically, she has something up her sleeve. Now, what she has up her sleeve, I don't know, but she took the flash drive for a reason. We don't know what it is, but that's going to be very interesting, and that's how this season ends, and it does say humans will return. Now, that confirms that we are going to have the same story, and I was wondering if we were going to do that, if we were going to focus on a different family, but I like that we're continuing the same story because I love these characters so much. I don't want it to end. Now, there are a lot of things that they need to get to next season. Why did Niska take Maddie's flash drive? Is she on Hobbs' side? What is her real plan here? Why did she do that? Now, it does make sense when she said she wanted to leave on her own. When she said that, I was a little bit suspicious because Niska's always kind of been the rebellious one. So definitely she has something up her sleeve. Is this good or bad? I don't know. I kind of feel like she wants to do something to help out her family, but she knows it's not something they'd be okay with. Like, maybe it has to do with destroying the humans. I don't really know what she wants to do. I honestly feel she might want to destroy the humans because think of what she did in, like, episode 3 where she was in the We Are People group and in that fight group and kill and, like, beat the shit out of all those people. That definitely is going to be very interesting to see what happens there. And also, I forgot to say, the one thing I was worried about in this episode was Niska being caught, because obviously she's a fugitive, and I was really worried what was going to happen to her there, but we'll have to see what her real plan is. Now, Hobb is still out there. He obviously, I feel like she's going to team up with Hobb, possibly. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Let's talk about Karen and Pete. I can't wait to see where they go next season. It's going to be really fun with them. I definitely see things being really fun with Karen and Pete because they're going to be probably the most awkward position out of anyone next season. They're going to be in this position where they don't know what to do. They're trying to figure out where to go in their life, and I feel like they're going to try to figure out if they're a couple, if they're just friends. I mean, very awkward stage right now, but I really like it, I have to say. I think it's going to be very interesting. Now, let's talk about Fred, because there has to be a way to deactivate Fred. There just has to be a way to get Fred back to his normal self, and I feel like what Niska wants to do is connected to that. We'll have to see what happens with that, though. That's going to be very interesting. Let's talk about the show as a whole. I never thought I'd love the show as much as I did, but this, honestly, guys, was one of my favorite shows this summer. I really love the show. I don't think the show had a single bad episode. Every episode just got more and more interesting, and this finale was just so rewarding, and I loved every minute of it, I have to say. It was a perfect finale. Everything that happened was amazing. I loved everything about this episode, I have to say. Really, it was incredible. Now, my only other thing I want to say is, what is Karen really going to do? Is she going to try to go back to her family? I mean, what is she really trying to do here? Because we don't know what exactly she wants to. We know that she's not going to go with Leo, but is there a way they're going to convince her? I really do see them going more into the history of that. I did hear that we'd see a flashback of David, which we did briefly, but not what I thought what I thought we would have gotten. I want to see an all-out flashback episode next year, honestly. I want to see an all-out flashback episode of David and Leo and all of them before they turn to Sins. I'd love to see what happened with that. That's going to be very interesting, definitely. But I overall really did love this finale. I love this show in general. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I absolutely loved it. It's been a pleasure reviewing this show to you guys, definitely. And next week we have Fear the Walking Dead. So Humans is over. I know it took me a while. And again, guys, I know I'm very happy I didn't watch it on AMC because they edit stuff out. And I can't imagine what they would have edited out because it's really stupid that they edit stuff out. And that's something I like about the UK version, that there were scenes that were very important that they didn't edit out. And that was awesome. But that's basically my review. Hope you all enjoyed. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. I overall love this episode. Best episode of the season by far. What do you think's going to happen next season? And I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review. And I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.